set.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the July 13th City of Norwalk Public Library Board of Directors meeting. And in attendance, we have Sherelle Harris, Janie Williams, Ralph Bloom, Patsy Brescia, Laurel Peterson, Alex Knopp, Geraldo Williams, and Mary Mann. And as guests, we have Jessica Vonacek and Alan Lowe. So would anyone like to move the approval of the June 8th meeting minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Any changes or edits?
Yes, I had, Alex, a number of changes. So, first of all, on item number 2, I withdrew my abstention on the minutes because I had been at both of those meetings. I had forgotten about the special meeting on the Sono branch. So I vote to approve both sets of minutes. Second, on the question of the Sono electric car charging station, my motion was to approve 2 connections. I don't know whether you call it 2 charging stations or a double charge at one station. I don't know how, but we had a debate between 1 and 2, and I had moved approval of 2, and that passed. And then third, in terms of the presentation of Ms. Laval, I think the summary here is very incomplete. And I think either we should table that section to expand it or not include it at all. But she talked to us for 30 minutes and there were, 3 or 4 sentences only about a few topics. And I don't think it's representative of the discussion that we had. So I'm concerned that the minutes are inaccurate because they're incomplete.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I had a similar reaction, and there was part of me that wondered if we should, if like presentations are kind of added to the added to the minutes, could we add her present? That wouldn't obviously resolve some of the back and forth discussion, but at least the meat of what she was saying would be included with the copy of the minutes.
It could be that we could say she made a presentation expressing the state library's perspective on governance and attach her slide presentation. But I think it's just incomplete and doesn't portray accurately as the minute should.
So is Telesco there?
He is, well, a representative is here.
I'm here.
Oh, hi. I'm not, would it be possible to add the minutes or go back and rewatch the video for a more complete summary of the conversation?
Do you have the slide presentation available to you as a separate item?
I do, yeah. And I can easily forward that to you. Or forward it to, yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be the best thing to do. Then you get it comprehensively.
Okay.
And I can add it to the end of the document.
And Moina, can you send it to me also? Because I missed it.
Yeah, I sent it to everybody, the whole board, but I can resend it to you.
Okay, thanks.
So you have it.
Well, I'm suggesting that we not include the summary that's in the current minutes in lieu of putting in the reference to the slideshow attachment.
That's fine.
Okay,
If that's what you want to do, that's fine.
is there any other discussion around that? Okay, so I guess we can propose the motion to accept the minutes with the replacement of with Alex's 2 changes and the replacement of Dawn Laval's section with her actual slide presentation.
Through the chair.
Through the
May
chair.
I,
Yep.
may I suggest you just table the minutes at this time, and then the corrections can be made, and the addition of the presentation could be added to it and resent.
Yep, that sounds great. Let's do that. We'll table the minutes. Okay, so anyone here with public comments?
Well, may I suggest that for Jessica and Alan Lowe's time that we go to your item on the agenda with them and
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think anyone is
There
here.
isn't anyway. for
Yeah,
public.
so I just wanted to get that. Yeah, so there are no public comments. So Jessica and Alan, for those of you who don't know Jessica or Alan, Jessica is the Chief of Economic Development. She has worked with the library in the past before COVID on renovation planning, and she's now back with us. And Alan Lowe, Building and Facilities Manager. For those of you who don't know, Alan has been around a long time and is a real expert in all things building. So I invited them to our board meeting to give a little bit of a kind of status as to where we are right now, and also for us to be able to ask them questions about next steps and things. So
Great, thank you.
yeah,
so
I'm sorry,
much.
I'll just say I invited them also in the context of the wonderful acquisition of 3 Belden, and Jessica was instrumental in that as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Really nice to see you. It's been a long journey over the last number of years to be able to get here, and we're really excited to be able to work with you all to figure out next steps, not only on a library renovation, but the library expansion for the Belden branch. And so, just to look back on the last couple of years, at one point in time, when you had finished the strategic plan and the building plan, we had come in to work with you to be able to try to translate that plan into some viable options for renovation of the existing space, your 47,000 square foot library, and also a potential expansion based on what the building plan and the programming plan had been saying at that particular time. And so, we worked through that because we weren't sure about acquisition on 3 Belden. We weren't sure about acquisition on 11 Belden. And so we were trying to understand different ways that we could think about creatively doing the renovation and expansion if some of those sites were to be acquired. And of course, today we know more now than we did over the last number of years. And so, thank you for your patience, and thank you for working with us and trying to figure all of this out. I know that you've been to the Westport Library, you've been to the New Canaan Library, you've been to the Boston Library, and you've been making your rounds on all of these libraries to be able to see sort of what your idea of the ideal library is and an updated library is for the community. And we commend you on all of your good work in doing that. So I think today where we stand is that we obviously have One Belden, which is the address in which the Carnegie Library, the Belden branch, is sitting on now. And we just got approval from the Common Council to be able to commit $1.4 million to be able to acquire the 3 Belden property. And that 3 Belden property is the redevelopment agency property that is directly adjacent to the library as of now. And so, we know that that there are stressors for parking, and we know that there are some stressors for being able to understand the footprint of the building and what that could look like. And so we continue to work to figure out what those acquisitions look like. But as of today, we know that we have 1 Belden and 3 Belden, and there's no very specific closing date for the first taxing district. And we're so thankful that the first taxing district is working with us and working with the library board to be able to figure all of this out, because without them voting to be able to sell that property, we wouldn't really even be having this discussion. And so, but we know that it may not be the complete answer. And we're not suggesting that it may be the complete answer, but it will actually allow for, a number of new parking spaces to be utilized by the library. And I know that the board had negotiated to use a number of those parking spaces already. And so, but as of the closing date, and again, there's no set closing date, but we're working very closely with the first taxing district, and there are no concerns and no issues. We're just working through all of the legal contract so that we can make sure that that the first taxing district needs what they need, and that we need what we need. But we understand that there are those pressures there. And so, as of today, we know that there's about $2 million in the capital budget. It was about 400,000. Alex, was it 400,000 or 450,000? I can't remember that number that the board had gotten a number of years ago.
450.
450. I thought it was 450. So the board had secured 450 through the capital budget a number of years ago. I think probably 20. I don't know when it was. 20
Pre-pandemic.
I'm assuming.
Pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. Before or after.
That's-
Exactly,
yeah.
before and
And then-
after.
Right. And then during the pandemic, we put in for another 1.75 million to be able to, at that time we were thinking about advancing our architectural services. And we know that the board did a lot of work to be able to develop an RFP on architectural services. And that's when Alan Lowe and his team from building management came in on the scene to be able to have us pass the baton over. And the other thing that I did want to mention is that there is $25 million slated for 2026 in the capital budget. That number has always been there for, not always, but for the last number of years since we've been talking about the library expansion, that number has been in there. It has moved from 2025 to 2026, but as it stands now in the capital budget that was just approved, where that capital budget is available on the city's website in 2026, that $25 million is there. So the 25 million of capital is there for the actual renovation and expansion. In addition, the 1.42 was agreed upon for the 3 Belden site. The selling price is 1.4 million, but the 20,000 was to be able to do due diligence on the property. And then in addition to that, that $2 million is there in capital. So, this is where I get to somewhat pass the baton to Alan, and Alan has been doing an amazing job for the city of Norwalk in doing all of our school work, all the brand new schools, new school construction, in addition to historical buildings. And, Alan is just a real gem. And so he really is if there is someone that you want to work with on a project like this, he is your guy. So, I'm just really excited to be able to see the next steps come together for the library board. And I know that you've all worked really hard for a really long time to be able to get here. So, are all the answers in place today? No, they're not. Are some of the challenges addressed to a certain extent? Yes, they are. Do they still exist? Yes, they do. And we're going to have to continue to work together to figure that out. And I'm committed, and the mayor is committed to being able to do that with you in a meaningful way. But, you know, there's a lot of fun stuff too. And Alan gets to lead all the fun stuff, talking about the programming and what the building is going to look like and the architecture and all of this kind of stuff. So I'll leave it there and I'll pass it over to Alan. And if there are questions at the end, then Alan and I can sort of share responses if that's okay with you, Moina.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Great.
You know, Jessica, for all the nice things you said about me, I think I owe you at least $10.
I was thinking 15, but 10.
Oh, 15, you think you're 15. Good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Lowe. I know some of you very well, and some of you I don't know at all. I know Patsy and Alex and Ralph and Mary. We've go back a long time. I mean, this is my 41st year. A little bit of history of me, because I'm getting involved in your project. I just want so that you have an opportunity to know who I am. You may see my name around from time to time, but generally speaking, I've been working for the city for 41 years. I've actually one of the first projects actually working on the 98 South Main Street building construction project way back then, long time ago. But generally speaking, I'm an architect background. After I graduated from the college, I started working with the city of Norwalk. Hasn't left. So I worked for Alex for a number of years when he was the mayor. You made me employee of the month. I'm not sure that was a good thing or not good thing. Do you regret it?
I meant to say employee of the century, but I missed.
Oh, stop. So I have basically 3 responsibilities for building management for the city of Norwalk. The major one is construction all municipal buildings. So in the past, in recent years, we completed, me and Alex worked on the police headquarters. And since then, we built a fire headquarters. And on, and all the school projects under my responsibility in terms of implementation. So we finished recently the Lower Ponus School, Jefferson School. We are about to open Cranberry School in another month or so for ready for the fall semester. And also I'm currently working at Norwalk High School new building projects, as well as South Norwalk School projects. Also, as I mentioned before, 98 South Main Street has become active again. I know that we've been trying to work with the YMCA for a number of years, and that hasn't come through for various reasons, but yet the city is moving forward to develop that as a a Norwalk Community Recreation Center. So that's one project I'm started to work on. Also, other things, including a Cranberry Gallagher Mansion, a $5 million grant for the state, which we started to work on that too. And recently, also, I finished the addition to a Maritime Aquarium for the 4D Theater and the SEAL Tank. So I am very much part of this community, and I've been around for a long time. And typically, I think this is part of what established under city ordinance under Alex's administration was that building construction projects. Also, I'm sorry, I forget Patsy. I'm also working on the Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum project.
Yeah, I was wondering. I thought maybe you quit while I took a week off.
Well, you know, if Mayor Railing offered me an early retirement package, I maybe then I'll quit.
Well, we all voted against that.
No. So where was I? Yeah. So all these projects, okay, that's the capital side, and also responsible for building operations. So I have a division that actually currently we provide building management services to all the city building, including library, both main library and the South Norwalk Library. We do again building management side, including managing building infrastructures, maintenance, and all that stuff. The third element that I'm responsible for the city is actual land acquisition and things like that. Anyway, so also I'm a staff member to the Land Use and Building Management Committee at Common Council. So with that, I just want to leave it at that. Specifically for this project, I think the way the city is set up in terms of construction administration, it's we typically the department will develop a concept of a project. And there are times I'm involved in it, and sometimes I'm not. But at the same time, at some point, the city under building management will actually, generally speaking, don't take this as a negative thing, but generally speaking, I come in and take the lead role in terms of help implement the project. I think the standardizing the process in terms of managing a construction project, including hiring the architects, RP of architects and construction manager, and on and on. It's a standardizing a process very important for the city because there's consistency in how we implement construction and relationship with contractor and the industry about how constructions are put together. So with this project, similar to all the other projects with the city, including all the school projects and all, at some point it becomes a transfer of responsibility. So I would take the lead in terms of like managing a project, complying with all the, if there's any grant requirements and bidding requirements and RP for architects and all that, I would develop those working with the city purchasing department. And also the other thing that we would do is we would create a committee, project, library construction building committee to work together to provide coordination between the library and the city, as well as in terms of programming side. When you start, once we hire, during the interview process, we, some member of the library board will be participating in the interview process of selecting architects, and sometimes not so much of the construction manager. It's a little different kind of profession. And then we will, once the architect is hired, then the architect will work very, very closely with the library staff to develop and the board to develop a overall program for the building. Generally speaking, I'm hands off on that process. I may sit in there, but same time, it's really is that you folks are the one that leads the conversation, what the building should have and doesn't have, what's important to you, how the space should be, what the size of those spaces are, and on and on. And generally speaking, I just sit in there, or a staff member from the office, most likely would be Joanne, would work with you folks and the architect to kind of develop the program. And we would do all the technical side, managing the account expenditures and state wages and minority hiring and everything that associated with the construction of the project. And at the same time, since building management is generally speaking responsible for the operation of building, we will also work on building the building as well as finding, make sure the management of the systems, building management system, which is the building controls and functions and stuff, so coordinated, so that by the time we finish a project, my other arm of my office will actually be in a position to manage it. So it's capital and operating becomes one and the same in terms of a process. So it's very kind of seamless to the library itself. So it is typically it's a long process, from start to finish, and we are looking to start the RP process for architect probably in a few months from now, but probably maybe, but this is August, but by end of the year, I think that's the thinking process. I think that's all I have. You guys are speechless.
Yeah.
That's 41 year in
Okay, I
3.5
have a
minutes.
question. I have a question for you if you want a question.
Sure.
We did a survey and came up with some program ideas, 2 or 3 years ago. And we're talking about updating that. And so I sort of gathered that from your presentation that would be like the second piece, rather than we do that first and hand that to you, and then you massage it and move it forward. Am I correct in that or not?
Yeah. Who conducted who administrated the process? Is it outside consult? Is it an architecture firm, or you did it in-house by library staff?
We hired a library firm to help us with the survey and come up, and we have discussed at length that it needs to be updated, especially after COVID affected a lot of the
Sure.
uses of libraries. So we need to revisit that. So how soon and who, timing wise, how would that fit in?
I believe that I think there's multiple people multiple companies has been involved in looking at this stuff. I think the next step is really consolidate all those efforts and focus on one company, an architecture firm with specialties in library and all, to lead those conversations. If a library consultant is required, then we will include that into the process. I think it's ideal for one company from now on to be solely responsible for all this, all the process. So my suggestion would be is to once we hire the architect, we will include that request or requirement into the RFP process, that as part of the services and for programming phase, they will conduct, whether it's through a separate library consultant or not. They will be required to, we will provide them with the current survey, and then we will also require them to conduct a survey to capture the current utilization strategies of or interests of the public. So to answer the question, yes, I think we will do that as part of the new architect, so that they will fully under one company's coordination.
Any
How
other
soon,
questions?
yeah, how soon can we get that going?
I think we need to issue RFP. So that's the first thing. I know that we have sample when we do RFP all the time, so there's sample RFP that's available to us, and it's just a matter of getting the project specific information in place together, so that it would be so I mean, conversation like this and a conversation that we may have to see. So we would draft something up, and we'll forward to some I don't know yet who I guess we will continue discussion on this to the library for you folks to review before I issue it. So there may be a designated person from the library board to be involved, and a little more involved than than others on the board. The other thing we probably develop is a project schedule for the project, so that you can see if the strategy is when to. It's really come down to is the allocation of funding for the project. So if depends on when the schedule is to obtain the $25 million, whatever it is, kind of thing. So we may have to work backward a little bit from there to see what the schedule would be. We have enough money to start the process, so that's not a problem. But then, if we don't want to start too early, but we don't want to wait too long either, right? So finding the right balance. So one of the things I would do is develop a detailed schedule of what that would look like.
Well, just to be clear, the number 25 million is just a piece of pencil writing on a paper. There's no actual money in that 25 million, and
Right.
the council has never voted to actually sell bonds to raise that money. As Jessica noted, we do have some preliminary design money that is actual money, but in terms of going forward, it's like hire an architect to build a school when the city hasn't approved the money to build the school. So I think that has to be coordinated a little bit more carefully going forward.
Yes, I think a couple of things. One is when we hire an architect, the architects have multiple phases of design services. The first one is conceptual design, and then becomes schematic design, design development, and construction document phase, and then go to bidding. Once we advertise for an RFP for an architect, within about 2 months, 1 to 2 months, we will issue RFP for construction manager. So when the architects start doing the programming phase and start gathering information and stuff like that, and start doing conceptual design, at that point we will have a construction manager contracted. So they would do what they consider pre-construction services. They will be part of the team and then provide cost estimating services. So combination of a conceptual design and cost estimate really do help us in terms of solidifying. I mean, at that point, we'll have a programming more established, and also a conceptual design as well as cost estimate. So it's very helpful in terms of requesting money for the city, that because we went through some steps in terms of design and cost estimate, so that there's it's a value in terms of just throwing a number out there. It's $400 square foot or 425, whatever we want to do, 60,000 square feet, whatever you multiply it, that's the number. I think the detail that we would go through in terms of conceptual design and cost estimate will have a lot more validity to the number that we're going to present. So at that point, we can work together to figure, well, if the number is too high, we need to bring it down, or with the sum, whatever kind of thing. So there's many steps in terms of working together to design and cost estimate to find a balance between programming and affordability in terms of financial perspective.
Alan, let me go back to the question that Patsy asked you and your answer. I think with a library as opposed to a school, there's probably a lot more sort of generic library activity that's pretty well generalized from library to library, as opposed to schools, whether it's elementary or high school, with different requirements and so on. And, we did this strategic plan, and from that, we did a building plan, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And we were thinking of updating at least the strategic plan to see if it would influence post-COVID, the building plan kind of approach. So when you say that we'd hire the architect first, I'm going to sort of challenge that a little bit. So in a school, you could say, look, a school is going to be a STEM school, or it might be a dual language school like Silvermine. We don't hire the architect to help us determine whether it's going to be a STEM school or a dual language school. That's a function of how the Board of Ed sees its educational mission and what the needs of children are in Norwalk. And similarly, I think there are parts of what the library does, even though a lot of it is generalizable, in terms of where we want to go, in terms of, business services, conference rooms, those kinds of things, that we would want to have a pretty good conceptual idea before we hire the architect, or while we're RFPing for the architect. So I just didn't want your answer to Patsy to suggest that we would not update these existing plans before we hired an architect, because like the schools, is the library going to be a STEM library or a dual language library? And that kind of thing needs to be fleshed out internally with the board and with consultation with obviously the city and patrons. So I just didn't want it. I mean, that's my suggestion, that we maybe refine your answer a little bit so that we're not holding off on updating the strategic plan until we hire the architect. I think we would need to get those things straight as part of what we're going to ask the architect to be implementing. Just like, again, the STEM school or a dual language school, that's an educational decision, and we have library usage decisions before we go about trying to hire the architect. Does that make sense to you, Alan?
Yes, it does. I think when we're using hiring an architect, it's really, it sounds very sounds like very pure and simple. I mean, not pure and simple, pure, very kind of restrict, just architecture design. But when we go through an architect RP, I think that if that's the interest, I think that there are probably firms out there that does both. There may be firms that are more architecture, but have a little bit, some library experience, but we wouldn't call them a library specialist kind of thing. So when we go issue RP, it's part of the process is like, once in the RP, when we request this strategic planning analysis and things like updating and things like that, I think as long as we include that requirement as part of the RP process, the firm will submit a proposal. If they are not in that position to that kind of evaluation, they will include a sub-consultant to go through that phase of evaluation. So we under their oversight, at the same time it will be a sub-consultant. But if a firm that does both, like architecture firm also does the strategic planning for library and stuff, then it's really one-stop shopping for us, right? So we do have the ability. So when we advertise for a architecture design consultant that's specialized in library, I think we can include that the service in there as part of the steps phase that they're responsible for. And at the same time, when during the interview, when they submit their proposal to the city, we as the board and we can actually look at those proposals and evaluate those firms. Which one? Let's say we got 8 proposals. and some firm may be stronger in certain area kind of thing, or if they're not, they may have a sub-consultant that's specialized library in terms of programming side and strategic requirements and stuff. That makes them a very good team. So I don't think we necessarily have to go out, do it once, and then go for architect afterward. I think there's opportunity to go through process once, but include that requirement in there so that the firm that's submitting are fully knowledgeable, or if not, they have a sub-consultant that supplement their talent.
Moina, I'd like to make a comment. I've been involved for city construction in both ways, with having the architect being involved in writing the specs. I chaired the committee to write the specs actually for the city hall conversion from the Norwalk High to City Hall, and served as chairman of the school building committee when Jefferson was built and the high school was built, and also wrote the specs for the Y when it was expanded in the 80s. And now, of course, it's going to be knocked down, everything that we built. But so I see that there is a benefit to have an architect do both of the functions, because they then gain a clear understanding of the needs of the library and what we want. And so they have that information. They're not interpreting somebody else's information. So I think that's a plus. And I'm excited to hear you say that that was your intention.
I agree with that, because it's, at least what I know of architectural firms and in my experience is that for something like a library, that kind of planning design phase is like a long process that involves the director, the staff, the board, the community. I mean, it could take, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, like about a year of really trying to kind of solicit input from the community and design. And I agree. I think that we have a basis, and I know that Sherelle and her staff are looking at the strategic plan and building plan. And if we have, something that we can give for them so that they're not starting from zero. I mean, we do have these documents, and they wouldn't be starting from zero, but they could really, kind of build the relationship early on and get to know the community, and it could really help them as they design. So.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Alan, I'm also interested in I have an understanding or have some clarity on what you're saying, but would the RFP specify that we are looking for a firm that would be able to add value by having specific information on working with in developing new libraries or doing conversions from an older library to a new library? Would that be something that's specified in the RFP, so that and when we're selecting the firm, the architectural firm or whatever firm, we would know that that they bring value that we're looking for and the expertise that we would need also?
The answer is absolutely. In fact, we actually potentially get into the restoration of a historic structure too, because it is part of that. It is the Carnegie Library, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of it. Historic restoration is one component. Library being the main component of the qualification. So yeah, I think once we identify all those requirements, our needs into the RFP, I mean, there still may be firms that will just kind of throw a proposal in, but we can see right away what the qualification, what the experience is, and stuff like that, and then we can just weed them out really quickly. So I think that we are going to get very attractive firms that do this day and night kind of thing, that participate in the RFP process. So yeah, but most definitely. I mean, all those requirements, and including historic restoration and stuff, is part of those criterias. And then we also, in RP, there's also criteria evaluations that we put in there, and there's a whole ranking system that we put in, so that, you know, give certain firm that has more knowledge in certain area, but a higher rating and all that. So it is subjective, but yes, sometimes it is also technical in the sense that we need to document all the process and how we chances are it's going to be a two-step process. One is going to be first process, actually RFQ, is for qualification. So when we issue that, it's really the firms that has experience. So we're not asking for a price on the first pass. So out of, let's say we get 12 proposals, 12 qualification statements, we'll shortlist it. We sit down to get together, evaluate them, and we may interview 3 to 4 firms. Minimum 3 probably, and most is 4, because each interview takes about an hour, so it's time consuming. So we probably shortlisted 4 firms, and then we do interview with them, and based on an interview, and then we find the firms that are fully, generally speaking, they're qualified already by the time they get to shortlisting. But the firm that we look at favorable to, then we request a proposal from them. Generally speaking, we request minimum from a proposal on 2 firms, and there are possibly we can request proposal 4 firms. But at that point, once they get the proposal, look, it's really at that point, generally speaking, it's fee-based, because we find them to be, all the firms are qualified, to the point that, either any one of those firms would be satisfactory to the city. But there are times that once you interview, we find that 2 firms is just the kind of step above the other ones. We may just request proposal on 2 firms. Or 3, whatever it may be. So there is a kind of established process in terms of finding very specialized architectural firms or partnerships that can do a project such as a library.
Okay, thanks.
So you were saying, maybe starting the new year, that this process might begin.
I heard the end of this year.
The end of this year. Does anybody else have any questions?
When are we going to have time to really get around to discussing this? Everything is loose right now. I think as a board, we haven't discussed the library construction now for several years. And I think we should at least get a feeling. We have new members too. And I think
Absolutely.
we should get a general concept of how people feel about it. And also, now that we know we're getting number 3, it's a huge difference. I know we'll still negotiate for part of 11, but I know that's a matter that's not in our hands. But I do think we should get a firmer hand on what it is we're going to be requesting. In the last 4 years, there's been so much change. We have had a chance to see the other libraries, and there are elements of them that we do like. There's some we don't. And we are a community. We're not a library like our neighbors. We are a true community library, and we satisfy other needs other than just library. So I do think we should have a chance to sit down over that cup of coffee with the plans for the building in front of us and each ask questions.
I'm wholeheartedly in support of that, Ralph. I think, we take our August meeting off. We kind of come back in September and have that conversation, and maybe schedule a longer board meeting for that purpose, to really do exactly what you're saying and prepare, have a chance to really talk through the current building, our desires for the future building, get Sherelle and the staff kind of very much engaged in this conversation, and and then we'll have a few months to kind of get ourselves, hopefully put our input together for Alan.
And the other factor is too, if we didn't all have a chance to see the new construction, we've seen Westport, we've seen New Canaan. However, if you haven't seen, take the time, go look at something that is new, ask questions. They were very generous with what they told us, the problems they got involved with, the decisions they had to make. And I think it would pay for us to know and appreciate what they went through. It will save us a lot of time. It really will.
Who else? Who were you saying?
I'm thinking New Canaan especially. When we saw, for instance, the design of their meeting room, really, it was quite interesting. We've never seen that before. And I think we should learn from what's already been done and see if we can adapt some of those situations. The one thing we were coming away with is community use. And we have a larger community than they do. And I think we should take the chance to make sure we are sure of what our neighbors have that either we want or we don't want. They were very generous with their time. And I think it would pay for us to really understand what they went through, especially when it comes to raising money.
Well, that's on the agenda for the foundation, so we're going to talk about that.
May I just, I'm sorry, may I just say something? I think the reason I'm here tonight is just so that we can start a conversation, and I just want to start creating a relationship with the board yourself, so that you know who I am, and then, because I know that you folks are going to be interested in me to help push this project along the way, kind of thing. So I think that's why I want to take this opportunity to just come to this meeting tonight. And also, I mean, I have received different information, and I haven't gone through them all that. So for the next few months is exactly what we'll be doing, is go through this information we have, and also looking at other things, so that at least at staff level, we are fully understanding what the parameters are in terms of where we're heading to, kind of thing. And then at the same time, we can work together to establish those criteria to write these RFPs and whatever we move forward, however we move forward. One of the things is that when we do a RFP, we can identify all the phases, including this, the initial phase that I think Alice was talking about. And we don't have to approve $1 million architectural services. We can request the RFQ and get RFP, and all the phases, the cost of each phase is identified. So we can actually go through, like, initially we can hire them for a conceptual phase together with a strategic planning phase together, and that's all we assign them to. But at the same time, we lock in the overall strategy in terms of financial strategy they have in terms of providing full service. So we can go through the initial phase and just contract them. For some reason it doesn't work out, it's we only committed so much time and money into it. But so this way you have if you want to have a little more sense of comfort with the firm you're using, that kind of thing, this will give us the opportunity to actually start working with them and just contract with just the initial phases. So it's similar to what you would do. I mean, in a way, it's almost similar to what you say. You go out, hire a firm to do strategic planning. In a way, we can actually do that. But at the same time, is that we will get proposal for the complete services, so that we have a parameter how much this the overall cost is, as well as the firm's capability and a comprehensive management by a company.
Another question, I may. Alan, before you do the RFP, will you be meeting with this board to get our requirements, so that you would have, say, go through a requirement analysis and needs assessment and know what the board desires and see as essential, as requirements before and try to get those, not try, but really get those things into the RFP so that our needs would be met?
Yes, absolutely. Because I don't just create this. Some of this actually you folks have to write for me, because it's something that we will pick. I will go through all the existing material you have from different consultants. Certain things that if the board feels that the same criteria is still true, then we will incorporate that language into the RFP itself. But certain things you don't feel that is appropriate, then there's changes, for instance, since COVID or whatever it may be. We will sit down, whether I will write it or something together, or me and Sherelle, or if we need some outside help, I'll get it and to write those provisions to incorporate into the RFP. So it's that's why it's not like we're gonna start doing this RFP tomorrow and get it out the street 2 weeks from now, kind of thing. No, I think we need some time to really go through it and get a line written out properly, and our scope of services are well defined. So I think there's a lot of stuff of information and work that's already done. So I think let me have, for the next couple of months, we have an opportunity to kind of go through all that stuff, sitting with you folks and look at some of the stuff and consolidate all that information to something that it's workable and acceptable to the board. And then we incorporate the RFP and then we issued it and restructure it to the way that we want to see how things comes in, the pricing and the process and schedules.
Okay, thanks.
If there, I realize it's coming up on an hour almost of our discussion. So, is there anyone with a burning question? Otherwise, I'm gonna just say thanks to Jess and Alan. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Thank you guys so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Jess. Thanks, Alan. This
Thank
is a
you.
very,
you.
this is
Thank you.
a very exciting conversation. And I know there's some things that still need to be, that are questions, but there's other, but you know, we're on our way. So.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next on the agenda, which I just wanted to get this on because I said last time I would about the Webster lot parking. Shortly after our last meeting, I forwarded all of you an exchange that I had with Brian Bedoli and Jim Travers about the possibility of getting some allocated spots, parking spots over at the new the Webster lot construction. And basically what Jim said, and you know, we kind of left it there, is that all the new parking that's being created is not public parking. It's allocated for, you know, the purposes of the apartment complex, and that the number of public parking spots is going to remain the same. And he invited us to come and speak with them or, you know, engage with them. But kind of the implication being that, you know, that just because the parking lot's getting bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get, like, just because of that, it doesn't mean that there's more parking to offer you. So, so we should, I just wanted to know if anybody had any thoughts or comments about any of that.
I do. The city is required to provide parking for the library. That's a requirement. So whether it's in the Webster lot or they have to come up with something else, but if they eliminate the 5 or 10 that we have, that we got through the parking authority, then we need it somewhere else. So we need to revisit that and have them look at it again. We shouldn't just walk away from it at this point. That's my opinion.
Alex?
Yeah, I, of course, agree with Patsy and feel more strongly about it. I disagree with the idea that somehow these are parking spaces for private developers and there's no additional room for public spaces. The whole project is a public project. And the city owns the Webster lot. And if we're going to allocate certain number of spaces to apartments or to businesses, we should also allocate spaces to the library. And if they don't do that, they could not go forward with the project. I mean, this project was, it was designed during my administration. There was no money for it at the time. We were doing a lot else, Wall Street and West Avenue. Now we've gotten some state money, but that doesn't change the character of a redevelopment project. And yeah, I think one thing we've learned over time is that a redevelopment project that displaces low-income tenants, for example, is unacceptable. And to me, a redevelopment project that displaces parking spaces for the library is unacceptable. So if they need to redesign it, they'll have to redesign it. But the answer that parking is for private users in a public space is simply inappropriate and wrong. And I think we should, if we need to meet with a redevelopment agency or meet with Brian, let's arrange that, but let's not accept his premise that somehow we're sitting in the back of the bus and have no right to demand spaces for library users.
Laurel? Thanks, Alex.
I'm just curious if we have a number in mind. How many spaces we actually need. Sherelle, is there a number that you have in mind about what you actually need to service the library properly? You're off.
Good.
You're muted.
And here,
I was thinking 20 to 25 spaces.
Okay.
Extra spaces, you're saying?
or total.
No, no, okay.
I think, total space is 25.
Okay.
Oh,
In
So
addition to what we have already, in our back parking lot, I think a total of 25.
But that,
so 20, so you're saying in addition to the 22 you already have, an extra 25. So
If we
that,
could, yes.
okay.
Patsy,
yeah, I agree with Alex. I feel very strongly about this, and I went to their first hearing and represented the library, as I've mentioned in previous meetings. And so the premise is wrong, and we need to really fight for it right now. And I think we should get them to a board meeting or have a private meeting with them as soon as we can.
So I
Before
can
it's too
invite
late.
them to our September meeting. So that would be Brian and Jim, I think, Jim Travers.
mhm.
So that's I will definitely do that. And so the 22 plus 25 is 47. So we're saying we need approximately 50 spaces for Sono.
But also, I don't know what their schedule is right now for their approvals. So, it's not on what's convenient for us, it's what's necessary for us that we need to meet with these people. We might have to have a special meeting. So I don't know if anybody knows what the next steps are with redevelopment for approval of this project.
I'll find out.
Yeah, we have to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay.
I agree with the statements. I said, I agree with the statements wholeheartedly. We need to have parking for the library.
So let me, as my to-do, I can find out what the next step is, and then what their next steps are, and when if
Yeah.
sooner is better. I mean, obviously sooner is better than later. And are people, I'm assuming, generally speaking, if we had needed to have a special meeting, we could. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
I am.
Yes. Yes.
Is there anything else on that topic that anyone would like to add before we move on?
You may want to consider letting the chairman of the redevelopment agency know of this in case he wants to participate or attend.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
that's his, Jim something? No, what's his name?
Let's
He's
see.
a former councilman from Rowayton.
John
Yeah, I know.
Igneri,
Yeah, John Igneri, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, he was on the first memo that we sent out, so. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the governance memo. I sent that out today, and I'm just wondering if everybody has had a chance to read it. I know I do realize I sent it out today, and so
I have not.
Mary has not.
Jeez.
Okay.
I'm trying to raise my hand here.
Okay, go ahead, Patsy.
I have read it and I think we really have to think about this very seriously. There still is a wide discrepancy in opinion between the state and the city, which we have never really gotten resolved within the city, although we have tried for like 3 years. And I found this to be accepting everything that the state interpretation of the function of our library and not inclusive of what the city's impression is. And with all of the attention and focus on helping the library expand at this time, I just had a lot of objection to much of what was in this letter. I'm concerned about it, that it would really disrupt us a lot. We need to talk to these people further and get somebody to come to our meeting and voice their opinion before we send anything like this out.
I think the letter is appropriate. When Sherelle and I met with Mayor Rilling and Lamond and Leisha some time ago, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, they laid out the process and we have tried to follow it, which is that in response to this efficiency study, Sherelle would first provide her perspective about it, which happened, and then the board would provide its perspective and submit it, and that the mayor and the council will take all of this under advisement. And I think that's what we've done. And there was no suggestion that, and Lamond agreed to all that, there's no suggestion that it had to be negotiated in advance, kind of off the record in private. And, you know, I think we followed the procedure that was laid out for us. Now, there may be follow-up discussions. I don't know whether the council has acted on any of the recommendations about any of the other agencies that were reviewed in the efficiency report. And I'm surprised at how little we've heard about any follow-up. But I think we have followed the procedure that the mayor and Lamond and Leisha outlined when Sherelle and I met with them.
Janie? Janie?
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting myself. Well, I kind of agree with Patsy. Well, you know I did because I talked to the governance committee about this. And my specific issue is that one of the points, because I agree that we're building and take care of the building, policies and procedures, but I do not agree with the fact that we're not discussing it with, because if you're saying, and Alex has said this many times, hybrid system, if you're a hybrid system, that means you're working as a partner, and you cannot go off. If you're working as a partner, you need to talk to the people that you're working with to come to agreement. And that's why I agree with Patsy on that. So that's my take on it. And I think that's what we need to do before we do anything. And that is my take.
Oh, Patsy, go ahead. And
Yeah,
I'll-
I just want to comment on Alex's mention of private and off the record. I did not say that. I did not imply that. I suggested that they come to our meeting and we talk. So I wanted to be very clear that that is not my intention. But I feel extremely strongly about this, that we need another step here, and they need to come and talk to all of us, not 2 or 3. and we should not send this letter out at this time.
So, does anyone else have anything? I mean, I can tell you what I was thinking as we were writing this for several months. So, so this, as I was writing it and working with the governance committee, I kept going back to, the state statute and the efficiency study and my time on the board. And that there is this, persistent lack of clarity around certain roles and responsibilities. And so, it seemed like the efficiency study is a good time, to kind of to leverage that and to put this, to bring all of this, to the mayor's attention. And so it was written in that spirit, and it was revised after we had our meeting with Dawn, because she was very, as someone who works with libraries around the state, granted, I know she's like representative of the state, she was very clear about the role of a library board, and especially an advisory board. And I think the city needs to know that, I think the city needs to understand where, like how important the state statute is, how, there are best practices that are happening across a state. But I understand Janie and Patsy's point, this is like, we're at a certain time right now, and maybe we ask people from the city to, I don't know. I mean, I don't really see the problem with sending it to them and then engaging them in some conversation around it. They clearly don't have to agree with all of it. So, and it doesn't seem belligerent in any way. It's, pretty well documented in terms of, I don't know, that's just my feeling. I mean, anyway, go ahead, Geraldo.
Yeah. So I don't think it's an issue with, and first of all, I don't think it's belligerent, but I don't think it's an issue of just, sending something to them and then you wait for a response. I think having a meeting with the city representative, calling a meeting with them and going through the process of presenting how we feel. It could be the same items that you documented there. I think having the meeting first, it would be a good idea, a recommended idea, to have a discussion with them to let them know where you're coming from. After that meeting, I believe we will have to present something. You then document that said, as we said, the meeting, but at least it gives an opportunity which may help them to be much more receptive, because it's not something that they're seeing and they think you just threw it on them, but bringing them in and sharing the information, how we believe, why we believe it's, this way, what we heard from the state, and at least, but I would believe we should have a meeting again amongst ourselves to be very clear on what are those items that we, believe are essential that we need to present to the city.
Patsy?
Whether
Yeah.
it's hiring a director, managing the staff, I think there's some critical items there
Yes.
that
right,
are listed, managing the staff,
Yeah.
hiring and firing, et cetera. And then
So-
walk through how would that work with the city? Sorry, Patsy, go ahead.
That's okay. I reread it again while everybody was talking, and the way I see it is that it's a good summary going into the process over the last couple of years. And then it reports what Dawn said at the meeting that unfortunately I was not able to attend. But then it doesn't posture the ordinance for the city. And it mentions here that the state says that the board has the ability to hire the executive director. And we just went through this a couple of years ago when Sherelle was hired. We interviewed everybody. We made a recommendation to the mayor, and the mayor made the decision, which is contradictory to what this article is saying. And so it's those kind of differences of opinion that it's very important now to get it straight within the city and the state. So one argument is presented here and not the other. And so that's my main concern with presenting it this way, which is why I suggest we have a meeting with them, and then we can articulate what we get from them and decide how we go forward.
And I think, sorry, Janie, just one point on Patsy's point. I think that part of this process or exercise is to somehow, because the city ordinance is not clear on some matters. And the point of this is to kind of engage in a back and forth and get clarity and get the city ordinance to be clear on this, because this was not just in the most recent hiring, it was in the hiring before that. And, this is not a, right now issue. This is an issue that is really looking forward, and, where we're looking forward and trying to not keep on going through the same rigmaroles every time. Right. So sorry, go ahead, Janie.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say, we have to be very careful because we don't want it to appear that we're being mayor of the library. We have to be careful. So therefore we need to include people so they will not feel like that. So that's what I want to say. So
Yeah.
that's my perception of it.
Yeah. And sorry, I just have something to say in response, and then Laura. I think another part of why this is so important is because, the board, has what I believe is a very critical role in fulfilling the mission of the library. And, the state statute gives the board authority, important authority. And in certain situations, that authority can really start to become very minimized, and we have to protect the role of the board, because I think that's another purpose of this whole exercise. Go ahead. Sorry, Laurel.
No, that's okay. It seems to me two things. First of all, if it's been 2 years since the efficiency study, where our window of opportunity is closing, right? I mean, at some point it's not going to apply anymore. And so we kind of need to get the process rolling, it seems. And then the second thing is that the letter seems like an opening, right? We are sending it to establish what the board wants and to open the negotiations, right? We don't assume that we're going to get all this, but this is kind of, okay, this is what we see. We're laying out what the state statute says. And now how do we negotiate to a position of clarity? Right?
I have a question, maybe, if we were to invite city officials to attend, who would they be, do you think, in this situation? Would it be the law department? Would it be the mayor himself? Would it be his chief of staff? I mean, I'm curious what you all think.
Well, I think we should be the community services department, because that's what it falls under, and include the mayor as well, because he would have the say in this. So that's my take on it.
Yep, sorry, Patsy.
Yeah, I think you have to add the legal counsel for the city because that's where it all ends up with asking for their interpretation of the current ordinance. So maybe that's where we start. Please, please articulate the current and review with us the ordinance. And we sort of have been asking for this for many years, and it hasn't happened, unfortunately. So we need to force it to happen and have an open discussion and then say, okay, how do we resolve it? To Laurel's point, but this is very one-sided, that the state law says this and that's what it is. And then they're going to come back and say, yes, and the ordinance says this. And so who prevails? The state or the city, or is there a combination thereof? And I don't think any of us know the answer, but there's definitely conflict of interpretation between the statute and the ordinance.
Go ahead. I thought Mary's, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Aldo.
And I would believe that we would want to have some clarity with understanding how HR fits into the picture with regards to managing this, the relationship and how empowered is the director's position with managing the staff, hiring and firing. So I think you should have the HR as part of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And by the way, I think it's not criticizing anything you wrote. I think it's how do we get there? What's the process? I think it's, having a meeting to explain what we heard and what we believe and what we want. And then it's like after that meeting, you document something else of how we're planning to move forward. But that the meeting is, the letter that you send is not the first time people are hearing and then wanting a discussion. And I think it's bringing them here so they have clarity on, what we expect. They will hear it. Most likely, if they have an opinion on it, they can present it too. But I think it's using this as a forum to set the table of, what are our expectations. And coming in there empowered with knowledge and information of what the state has said, what we have assessed and what we believe, and how we believe this should operate.
Patsy?
Yeah, the city has a responsibility to articulate their position and explain it to us. And again, we've asked for it multiple times, and I don't know why we haven't been able to get them to come, but they need to come, and we need to have an open discussion with them and then decide how the board feels and move forward. But until we have that, I think this is not a good response. It's not helpful. I don't believe it's helpful for the library.
I'm open to inviting people to the board to talk to us for sure. I do think as a board, we do need to really think about
What we want.
what we not just what we want, what we are due, like what are we entitled to, because the city will always, kind of, the city will always want more control, right? I think, and for financial reasons, for not this current administration, but for political reasons one day,
Absolutely.
And we have to be, we have to understand that, that there's a reason why the state is there's a law around a library board, unlike any other kind of boards. And that, if we, we just have, there, it is a negotiation, but, we should also know what we want and are due in a way, so, go ahead.
I think what you just stated is exactly right, but I think it's being able to state that in front of them. It's having this meeting and present that in person to let them know these are the things we believe based on what we have heard, what we have researched and found, what we have identified. These are the things we believe in. These are the things we want. We're not backing away from the position. I think it's more of a process of rather than just writing a letter and then they just respond to you in a letter without having clear understanding of what you're saying. I think having a meeting provides a better forum for explaining what we believe should be achieved, how the library should be governed, how the position should be managed, etc.
Oops, sorry. I mean, okay. So
Take a vote.
we can take a vote, or we can also, I mean, there's a few things that are still like, I just need to kind of resolve a little bit in my own head. So we're saying to invite whom to a meeting? We're saying to invite legal, Lamond,
Mayor, Human Resources.
Yeah. Who are you sending the letter to? Who did you
I
plan
was
to
planning
send?
to send it to the mayor initially,
Only the mayor?
and then possibly the common council too. But we could also, I mean, we could also start with the mayor and CC, I mean, not send it, I mean, I think we have to lay out like what the issues are in advance. I don't think we should, I mean, it seems like, oh, if we invite them and then, without some kind of framework or framing of what is, it's a little bit, I mean, a conversation could just go in so many different ways. So I just think that.
But I think that's the point. We need to have the conversation, because then you have, it's like you when you're a team and you're throwing out ideas, and you throw out ideas, then maybe they're crazy ideas, but in the end, you streamline it and come to what's really the point. And that is what I'm talking about. You need to talk and find out where you can meet together, because if we are a hybrid system, then you got to work like a hybrid system. You can't go off doing what you want to do and not include the city. Or they can't do the same thing. So you have to work with them to get where you need to go. But because I don't think it'll work if you're going to just exclude them and say, well, we want this, this,
No, I mean, that
this.
was never the point.
Well, that's how the letter reads. I'm sorry, but that's how it reads. It reads like that. And just like I said, we don't want to look like we are trying to be mayor of the library. And that's what I'm trying to say. We have to include them so they understand where we're coming from. If you never have a conversation with anybody, then they're not going to listen to you, really. Not too much. They can get the letter, but that doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. So that's why I think you should have a conversation and then go from there.
And that's why it needs to be more than the mayor too. You definitely need to
Yeah.
engage, bring more people here.
Exactly.
Greater chances of
Sorry, go ahead.
achieving success.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to go back again to the thing I said originally when we met with the mayor and Lamond and Alicia King. I don't remember, Sherelle, 2 or 2.5 years ago, when the efficiency study came out. And the process they set up was that each department head would have a chance to respond first to the recommendations in the efficiency study. We had no meeting about it with her. We didn't require the director to meet with the mayor or Lamond or anybody. She was going to give us her reaction to the efficiency study, and she did that. And then we agreed that the board would send its reactions, because I had drafted a memo of setting out a procedure, and that meeting we changed it so that Sherelle would get the first crack at responding, and then the board would. And then the process was to be that the 8 or 10 departments, which were covered by the efficiency study, each would go through this process. The director of that department would respond, and then if there was a board or commission, the board or commission would respond. And then the common council and the mayor would take all of these responses from 8, 10, or 11 agencies, including the library board, however many, I never counted up. Not everybody was included. For example, the redevelopment agency was not included in the efficiency study. And that all of these recommendations and responses from the departments would then be considered in some process by the council and the mayor, with discussions in committee meetings, with us being able to answer questions or comment. And then eventually the council and the mayor would decide what to recommend if there were needed changes from the ordinances and so on. So there was a process that was set up. It wasn't that we would just submit a letter and demand that they conform to it. It was the process. Executive director goes first, which she did. Then the board or commission gives its response. And then the collaborative process within the city of the council and the mayor would consider all of these responses from the, again, 8, 10, or 11, I don't know, however many agency boards and departments there would be. And that would be the process. So it's not as if we're shortcutting anything or shortchanging or making unreasonable demands or refusing to meet. This is the process that was set up, and that's why we didn't do anything until Sherelle was finished with her memo, and then we were to take up our response. And the idea is not that each agency is going to negotiate in public or private, whatever it may be, with each board or commission, but they're going to be considering these things kind of as a aggregate response to the issues raised in the efficiency report. So I think we're proceeding as we were directed to do. There would be much more after this gets submitted. I don't know what other agencies or commissions or boards have submitted, if they followed that, but that's what we worked out with the mayor and Lamond and Leisha King. So it seems to me that, you know, that's the process that we're following. I appreciate people may not agree with it, but it shouldn't be kind of alleged that we're trying to exclude anybody or shortcut anybody or avoid discussion with anybody. It was always the intent that those things would happen after Sherelle and the board submitted their responses to the efficiency study, which seems to me where we are now. I mean, and if we have a mayor, I mean, a meeting with, you know, the mayor and Lamond and the head of human resources, you know, so Janie and I argue in front of them and disagree, perhaps. What purpose does that sort of serve? It's really us trying to, within our board, trying to come to some conclusions. Maybe some of them there'll be a minority report, or Janie or Patsy disagrees with us or that, fine. But the idea was that we're following the process that was set out. So I hope there's not any suggestion that somehow we're trying to avoid that process or do something inappropriate or outside of the bounds. These were the ground rules that were set up. Thank you.
Patsy?
Yeah, one of the deficiencies I think, which creates the need for this discussion, is that the state statute is an appendix to this document. The ordinance, the city ordinance, isn't. And they create the hybrid environment that we're discussing. And so that makes it appear that we're absorbing and supporting more of the state and in conflict with the city ordinance. And we don't want to give that impression.
Yeah, I had a
And so-
link to it, but that, I guess that's not really the same, so.
Pardon?
I said there's a
What?
link in the document to the city ordinance, but it's not,
But no, it should be an appendix, you know, just as, and then then we articulate that there's differences of interpretation in the two, and that needs to be resolved for the benefit of the library. And so we invite that discussion to do that, to accomplish that end. because what has been articulated is pretty much absorbing the state statute in opposition to the city ordinance.
It's not necessarily in opposition. It's like, because there is very little in the city ordinance. So therefore,
It needs to be a part here. It needs to be in front of everybody so that they can read one and they can read the other, and then they can see for themselves the dilemma that we as a board face. And although we've been telling them that for years, they don't seem to absorb that or focus on it. We need them to focus on it and come to some conclusions.
well, what about the idea of including the city ordinance so that it's at the same level as of the state statute? I mean, there's nothing like a letter to get people to pay attention to things. First of all, let me just say that. So, and I don't know how, I mean, we could lay out the problem and take out the recommendations for now, at this.
And say these
year.
things need to be discussed, these issues, need to be
I
discussed.
mean, I'm trying to come to some, I don't know, some place of compromise here so that we can all,
Well, obviously,
I don't have
you
any
put a lot of work in here, but,
I-
we don't want to give the wrong impression.
And I
Laura?
don't,
sorry, go
think-
ahead.
no, sorry, I believe, I don't see a problem with making recommendations. I think you make recommendations and it's a starting point of where do we go from here? Because I don't think you want to have just a general discussion and you don't propose how you think we should move forward. I think you need to have a statement of how you think we should be structured and let them say no, or let them modify that. But you can't just have a discussion and don't propose what you think is wrong or what needs to be changed or what needs to be, what needs to be modified or what's the best structure based on, but while conforming to the laws or bylaws.
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I've always brought solutions, right? You bring solutions to the boss and you say, here's the problem that we see, and here's the way we see that we can fix it. And it seems to me that that's what the letter has done. It makes an effective argument for what we see as an issue or issues in the as revealed by the efficiency study, and then it asks for specific changes. And I think that's great. That's what we need to do. And as Alex says, that was the whole point of the efficiency study. And then that's your beginning point for negotiation. I don't think that you're, expecting that you're going to get everything that you want, but there has to be a way to get started. And if all we're going to do is talk about it or have more conversations with people, we're never going to get anywhere. We're going to still be doing this in 6 months, right? And the idea is that we make changes to this so that we actually get the issues sorted out, right? I don't know, my 2 cents.
Mary?
Only because I've been a proponent from the beginning about having a conversation with the mayor and with Lamond in regards to some of these issues. I'm not really understanding why there's such a hesitation to have these conversations. Mind you, quickly reading this letter and glancing at it, some of the things that are jumping out at me is the human resource responsibilities. And I just think it's time for us to sit at a table, have a dialogue, and then determine how this should be handled. But where my concern is, I see it was originally addressed to the mayor and to the members of the council. You're sending it to a large body, and I don't think either one of us know the exact direction or that we should go, because there's some serious legal issues that we need to look at in regards to our ordinances versus the statutes. So I just do not understand why there's such a hesitation about coordinating a meeting. Maybe that's my issue.
Patsy?
Okay, the last thing here is, I have no recollection that we have voted on, all of these, items that are articulated of what the board wants.
No, that, well, I mean,
Am
that was,
remember- All right,
so we talked about them, and this is why we're bringing them. We have not. This is like our first real discussion around this memo. So I know it's been kind of talked about here and there, but this is like last time, Dawn came and we were like, okay, we have to based on what she said, this is the revision based, so this is a very good conversation, and it's a conversation that's happening because there's something in writing. Right? It's like, it's very hard to have these conversations in the abstract, I think, at least in my opinion. So yeah. So I think,
well, I would like to make a motion that we table this letter and that we invite, appropriate people to come to a meeting as soon as we can schedule it to discuss the ordinance and the differences between the state statute and the ordinance.
so the idea would be to, let me just see if I'm understanding you correctly. To invite that group of people we talked about, say, here's a state statute, here is the city ordinance. Here are some issues.
The conflicts between the two. Yeah,
Well, I think like it's, yeah. And so this is, we're not even discussing the efficiency study. Like, this is completely not in the context of the efficiency study, or is this?
That's possible. That might make it easier.
Are you, the effic-
Or it is in the context of the efficiency study. The efficiency study, highlights some of these issues around roles and responsibilities, which are not addressed in the city ordinance. We need to. I'm just trying to understand what the actual purpose of the, like, is it to talk about the efficiency study? Is it to talk about the
difference between, my opinion, is the difference between the city ordinance, where the conflicts are between the city interpretation of the city ordinance versus the state statute, and which one rules,
but
because they're in conflict.
I believe, sorry.
Yeah, two things. One, first, to answer Mary, I think she asked a reasonable question about reluctance. As I recall, when Sherelle and I met with the mayor and Lamond and Leisha King, the mayor was quite clear. The efficiency study did not represent his recommendations. These are the recommendations of a private firm hired, and the city did not approve or disapprove its recommendations. So when we're talking about the efficiency study, we're not talking about a recommendation from the city or from the mayor or from Lamond. We're talking about a private firm that did in our view, incomplete review of how the library operates and made these recommendations, which in my mind are defective, in large part because of how they went about it. So to meet with the mayor to resolve our response to the efficiency study, to me, I'm glad to meet with the mayor. I talked to him quite a bit, but it's not a logical way to address the efficiency study, since he didn't propose them, doesn't sponsor them, or doesn't endorse them necessarily. So our response to the efficiency study isn't something that involves city officials as being the authors or sponsors or proponents of these changes. And the whole idea of the process set up, because, if that were the case, they would have met with Sherelle, and Sherelle didn't need to do a memo in response to the efficiency study because they're not city recommendations. They're an outside firm. And that's why we set up this process, 2 steps, well, 3 steps. Sherelle responds, the board responds, and then the city does its consultations and review and scrutinizing process to decide what of the efficiency study recommendations to adopt, which ones to revise, which ones to reject. So in that context, I don't think this meeting is the necessary next step. And in terms of differences between the statute and the ordinance, you know, again, I don't object to a hypothetical discussion with the law department, but the whole point of this was to make recommendations about what should be the case, not what is the case. And what should be the case arises out of the fact that there are differences between the ordinance and the statute that the efficiency study pointed out without going into very much analysis or detail about the differences, and therefore kind of invited us in this context to respond. So again, having a discussion about the differences of the statute and ordinance, you know, would be interesting, but I don't think it's what the agenda calls for in terms of the efficiency studies status. And that's why I think we can respond to the efficiency study because it's not a recommendation of the city. It's not the mayor's idea. It's not Lamond's proposals, and therefore it gives us a certain leeway to respond to them as the letter says, without, you know, referencing anybody's performance or, you know, I mean, there are mayors in Connecticut who have tried to get books removed from the shelves within the last 6 months because they thought it would help their reelection. I mean, we're against that, but we're not saying that Harry Willing is going to do it, and I'm sure he wouldn't. But we have to approach these issues not on the basis of current personalities or occupants, but in a more detached and structural way about how the library should operate. And I don't want to, again, assume that what's in the efficiency study is a recommendation or a set of proposals from the city, because they're not. And in my mind, they're flawed because they didn't discuss it with us. And just so you know, I had asked Lisa King when I was president of the board, could the authors of the efficiency study after the fact meet with the board? And she said, no, there was no money in the budget for them to meet with individual departments. So I think where we are again is back to where the original proposal was when we met with the mayor and Lamond and Lisa King, which was to give a response to a set of proposals from a private company, in my mind, that didn't do a very good job and may have done a better job for other agencies or commissions or boards. And that's the context in which we should respond. So Mary, I just want to be clear. I think you asked a serious question. I'm trying to give you my serious answer as to why a different approach is called for.
Thank you, Alex. But also we're talking about an efficiency study that it kind of acknowledged that the mayor doesn't even agree with it. Okay, so why even bother to respond to it when we can have a sort of meeting to say, hey, what direction are we going in? What do we need to do?
But why are we asking them? Like, why can't we have an opinion about what we need to do? I mean,
and that's what I was suggesting when I was saying, it's not just asking questions. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. It's really proposing some things. I think we can show here are the differences, and this is a recommendation of where we believe we should be, the direction we should move in, how we should manage. But not just have a discussion and say, oh, there's some things that are some areas of differences, et cetera. I think we should provide a recommendation of how do we overcome those things, or what do we believe is the correct way or the best way for us to, manage a library, to operate as a, within the city of Norwalk. And they're going to be here, so it's a discussion, but I think we need to have, and it may require a meeting before that but that we should have some recommendation of what changes or how we should be structured, how we should manage it, etc. Otherwise, to me, it's just a discussion that you're going to close there and we'll still remain where we are. This way it gives them an opportunity to say what they believe, but at least we're not throwing something down their throat saying, this is the way to go. We're saying this is the way we believe, based on everything we have heard from the efficiency study, et cetera, and our assessment of how this should be operated, give them come up with some recommendation, whether it's the things that are there, we could use that as a starting point amongst ourselves and decide how we're going to present that.
Well, isn't that what's currently in the letter? I mean, I think there are recommendations at the end. Moina's listed 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe if we send the letter and we say something like, we'd like to use this as the opening for a discussion with the city about, how we resolve some of these issues, right? As a place to start, rather, right? That's what it's for.
Janie?
Building on what Geraldo said, I agree with you that we have to, should have a recommendation. However, it's just like Patsy said, you can't have a recommendation if you don't sit down and give them all the facts, all the information, and you're gearing it to the state statute. And like Patsy said, you're ignoring the city. And so when you do that, that is like you're dealing with somebody and ignoring the other person. No, that's not going to work. You have to bring people and things together in order to get what you need. You can't separate them. And that is what the problem is with this letter, because you just have it where it's just showing the state statute, but you put a little link, like that's going to get ignored. Nobody's not going to click that link.
I can easily.
Because I didn't even know it was
on.
on there, as a matter of fact, myself. So imagine somebody else reading it. And then the other thing is, you're dealing with people who are busy. You really think they're going to sit there and read a letter? I don't think so. It's better if you talk to somebody face to face. You look them in the eye and you go through you work out your differences, whatever that may be. And that's what I think should be done. I know Alex wants to get this done, whatever, and you want to get this done, but let's do it in the right way. Meet with the people. Again, Alex always said it's hybrid. Now all of a sudden it's no longer hybrid. Why? If it's a hybrid, work with the person that's in the other partner. That's how you get things done. If you're going to be a team, because that's how you work and get things done. You have to work as a team and as a partner. And that's what that's what I agree to. I really will not vote for this letter to be sent.
I still believe in hybrid, Jamie.
I don't think you do. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't think the letter is that. I think the letter is very much like wants to be in partnership with the city. And I tried to make it that way. I can easily add the city ordinance. I don't think having read both many times, I don't think they're in conflict. I think the city ordinance just doesn't say anything about a lot.
But you should still put it in there.
Yeah, for sure. There's no,
this is A, this is B, and let them compare the two. That's all.
Yeah,
not just put the link, like I said, not just put a link, because nobody even knew the link was there.
So it was kind of like
we don't see it. You think they're gonna see it? No, they're not. So that's what we
would just like to just really have a conversation. This is an issue that's been going on for many, many, many years.
Yeah, I agree.
I would just like to have a conversation with the main players in this thing before we tell them what direction we would like to go into. I think it's a conversation that's just long overdue, and I just want to have that conversation. That's just a personal thing with me. I've been on this board for many years, and I've watched this issue ride over and over and over again. What are our legal, ramifications? I've sat on a board where we had a mayor come in and virtually cussed us out, and told us I just want to hear how this conversation is going to develop. Another piece, I also think some of this letter, and I only read it quickly, sort of puts our director in a kind of a little messy situation that I think would possibly would be better if we sat down and had a conversation before we sent it, because it's going to be, oh, well, what does she think and why did, let's talk about it first. That's just my only opinion. So would I vote to send a letter? No. Only because I want to have a conversation.
Okay, I mean, I want to have a conversation too, and I also don't mind sending a letter. So it's not like either or for me. I mean, so that's why I'm a little like feel like a vote makes it a little bit like an either or type of situation. I mean, and I don't mind having a conversation then sending the letter. I mean, or sending a letter. I am of the mindset that people do like. If things are important, people read them, and things really like only get done through like some documentation and that's my personal opinion, is just that I think it's very important to document your thoughts and your ideas and move things forward in that way, because but I'm also, like I said, open to having a conversation first. So
I made a motion. I don't think it was seconded, but there is a motion presented to table this and to invite appropriate people to a meeting to
And I
discuss
second
the
that.
issue.
I second it.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Laurel.
I abstain, Alex, 'cause I don't know what the topic of the meeting would be. So if Patsy wants to make that part of her motion, I would welcome that so I could decide how to vote, but to invite people to a meeting to discuss what would be the agenda of the meeting?
The conflicts between the state statute and the city ordinance and the lack of direction to our board, clear direction of the powers of our board.
Well, are you
And
making an
Alex, what, we've been asking for that, for years.
So are you making an assumption that there's a lack of clarity? I mean, if you want to invite a discussion of the ordinance and the statute, I understand that. Would that exclude the efficiency study?
I'm confused because I thought you said it has nothing to do with the efficiency study. So I'm
That's what I'm
confused.
asking. Well, I don't know what I'm
No,
voting.
but you
on,
said
that's why
that. I'm
I
confused
abstain.
because you said it didn't have anything. It had totally different. So I'm confused
I
now.
think
I'm
step
asking, what is
one,
the-
But you said
my
that.
answer,
What's the
Alex,
agenda of
is
the meeting?
I'm confused here.
I think I explained it. It did not connect it to the efficiency study. I connected it to our basic instructions to the board of our responsibilities under the city ordinance in comparison to the state statutes, which is what we've been asking for several years before this efficiency study even was proposed. And if we are still discussing it after all these years, it just is clear evidence that the need is there.
Go ahead, Harold.
I would recommend though that in the meeting, we should have a stance as to how we think we should operate. It's not just saying, here's a difference, and then that's just a discussion. And everybody say, yeah, we agree there's a difference and we will accomplish nothing. I think we should have, should talk about the difference, but then talk about how we should operate within this environment with the differences. I think it's important, that we.
So you're basically saying to say some of the, like, just use the letter as a foundation for what to talk to
Yeah,
recommend.
if the group
the board
agrees that,
agrees.
but yes. Mhm. But at least
That
have a
gets me to
position.
the point that we have not voted on these issues as a board. We have not voted on them. they've been assumed and they're included, but they have not been voted on by the board.
But that's why, Patsy, I'm saying that we have a decision. I'm not saying that to those that saying that it's not just a discussion saying there are differences and here are the differences, but we don't give a sense of direction.
Mhm.
But it just seems like we're not clear on our direction right now.
Yeah.
It
Because-
just seems like,
Because the ordinance isn't clear, that's right.
But I'm saying I think we should have some sort of, we should have a direction going, going into the meeting. So
How do
delay-
we get there,
if you heard Dawn, from the state perspective, it is, as someone who works with municipalities like ours, city funded libraries, it's pretty clear. Like, it was pretty clear when she came and gave us a talk about what
But
we
this is one
are,
thing,
what a board's roles and responsibilities are. It
Right.
was,
but you keep saying that she said that we have to do, that's not what she said. She said the advisory board does not do the financial. You do
yeah,
the
it's
wait a minute, let me finish. You do the building procedures, the policy, but she said that they don't do the financial, the budget. It goes to, you don't have the control of the budget. And she said that you work with the city for hiring and work on doing the library director. That's what it said. And I can pull up the slide that says that.
no, absolutely. I mean, that's
So,
what the letter
that she
says,
did not
too.
say that we have authority over hiring it. She said we work with the city to do that. So
Yeah,
you're
but
you're
in part-
misstatement.
no.
I can pull it up and show you. I have it.
So that's,
I
uh,
That's what
agree
it
with you
says.
100%. And this
So-
is says appoint a library director in partnership with the mayor. I mean,
Right.
that's what this recommendation
So
is.
that's what I'm talking about. So what you put on there on the letter is not true.
I'm just
She
reading
didn't
you
say
from my
that.
letter. I'm actually reading you. The board will appoint a library director in partnership with the mayor. That's
And
what,
that's what we do. But it sounds like that's the main thing that you want to change. And I'm saying that's not true.
it's not the,
And that is what we have to flush out. And we can't go, because I'm not going and agreeing to something when I don't agree with it. Because that's not right. You can't just do something just because you want to do it. Like I said, we can't be mayor of the library just because we want to get control.
nobody
We can't
wants to
do
be
that.
mayor of the library.
We have to work with the people to get where we want to get. And if we don't do that, we're just going to be spinning our wheels. And if a new mayor or new administration comes in, guess what? Out the window it goes. So you have to set it in stone and work with them to make sure that it gets changed and it's gonna go forward then.
I'm totally confused right now
Yeah.
because
It's
I
9:03, everybody. Should we just take a vote or should we table this? What should
yeah,
we do?
let's just, I mean, because I just am completely like confused right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
You
okay.
have a motion and you have a second.
Through the chair, this is the secretary. I believe you already did take a vote. There
Yes,
was,
you did,
Laurel was opposed and Alex abstained.
right.
And the rest, everybody else was in favor of tabling.
Yes. So
Thank
that's
you.
it.
okay, that's fine. Okay, so it's 9:03 and I'm actually very worried about people now. Okay, so Sherelle, go ahead. Sorry, that was the last thing.
Okay. I need you guys to smile. I don't want to give it, yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm going to try to share my screen. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah, I can.
So basically we are Region 4, Norwalk Public Library. So I just listed, some of the other libraries that are in our region. you know, people that I can be in touch with, and work in tandem with, and I can share this if you'd like. But my goals for fiscal year 2023-24, and forgive me, I have Invisalign, so I feel like I'm speaking with a list. So I'll try to speak very clearly. So we've met with Alan and Jessica. So two of the goals are update the strategic plan and to update the building plan in tandem with my supervisor team. Moina mentioned that, you know, we'll share what the previous firm has put together, and we can update it, you know, with our thoughts post pandemic. I'd like to increase my community visibility upon hiring the two supervisor positions. There is a conflict at present. The access services manager position was posted, and so we are now in the exact same position we were initially with the library, with the Sono manager, waiting months and months and months and months before we are able to contact people. Some people get promoted, and we run the risk of losing the better candidates. So that position was posted, but now they're saying that the position was not funded. Number 4 is to increase our partnership with Norwalk Public Schools. I mean, I believe we have a great partnership with them. We've had the classroom pods during the pandemic, where both libraries were another classroom. Right at present, every Norwalk Public Library School student has a library card, and Norwalk Public School promotes Norwalk Public Libraries programs. But I'd like to do a crosswalk with the superintendent to see if we can get our goals to match up and further our partnership. Similarly, I'd like to build a partnership with Norwalk Community College. We do have the relationship, a very close relationship with Lifetime Learners, but I'd like to build a relationship with the professors and the students, and perhaps offer classes here. But again, that would, you know, entail sitting down with Cheryl Devonish and doing a crosswalk of her goals as well as the library goals. I'd also like to build a partnership with Norwalk Public Hospital. We have the study pod, and we have study rooms. The study pod, which is very well used. It's the one we got with the ARPA grant. I'd like to further discussions about telehealth and, you know, have the discussion about newborn packets. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why this is. But newborn packets, so have a packet ready, you know, for each parent who gives birth, and perhaps get the newborn a library card. Any questions so far? All right, so this one is a little ambitious. I'd love to build a partnership with.
I have one question about the access services manager. How do we, I mean, what do you need from the board in terms of, I mean, I thought that was
You know,
like a funded.
honestly, Moina, I am so frustrated right now. We went through the same thing with the branch manager. We ended up losing a very top candidate, who of course wondered why it took 6 months to get back to her. And she ended up getting promoted on her job. So, and here we are again. So that's a discussion, I think, for another time. Maybe we meet. I know Lamont sent an email to us asking, well, actually, I think I asked for a meeting and he followed up, but I haven't heard anything since. So maybe that's what we need. I have more than twice, I believe, listed what the library needs. And so that's how we ended up with an access services manager and a branch manager. So I don't know how many more times I can articulate that.
Could I ask a question on education?
Sure.
Have we, any kind of partnership with the schools for interns,
For,
like the summer program or whatever, to get the kids involved with the library?
so we do have the Mayor Summer Youth Employment Program, which is an absolute phenomenal program.
Right.
And those
Yeah.
children come from Norwalk Public Schools. So Darlene Young actually does a phenomenal
Yeah.
job.
Yeah,
and
so
she-
can that be part of your goal? Because then we expand that program or whatever, because otherwise people don't know we're doing it.
And we have about 7 of them this summer, and they are
Oh, great.
absolutely phenomenal. So I'd love to.
Yeah, good.
So thank you for that suggestion. So I'm building the partnership with Norwalk Hospital, which I did go through, the Department of Motor Vehicles. The same way we have the what is it, the passport program. I'd love, to have the discussion with Department of Motor Vehicles to see if perhaps a staff member can come on site at both libraries. Maybe, I guess we'd have to figure that out, maybe once a week to help people, through the process of, of either renewing their license or getting their license. I know we were thinking when we get our new building that we would have space where we can have other people come in and offer their services. We are not there yet, but I think we can begin the discussion maybe once a week, twice a week, of having someone come down to help others through the process. We definitely need to strengthen our security. Both of our alarm systems are totally outdated. So if something were to happen, we'd have to wait and go through the process of, waiting until we get a service call, waiting until we get the equipment. So we did put the, Neil put it in his budget. Neil is the head of Guardian, our building management system for the city. So Neil has it in his budget to update the main library's system. This is for his in the capital budget. However, we've recently discussed putting Sono in as well, because there are times that that system fails. So he's thinking of going for emergency funds so we can do both at the same time.
And that
And
would be in this year, this fiscal year.
it is in this fiscal year. Yes. Because heaven forbid something goes wrong and then we have to wait and wait and wait. So just being proactive and getting them fixed, because the system, the company keeps telling us that, they don't really service and there's nothing they can do if something goes wrong because it's that outdated. And I think our guard company could use a little more training. So I'd like to work a little more in tandem with them, as far as de-escalating situations, having when they send people, instead of just sending somebody blindly, I have a 2-pager that they could be giving to them so they could at least be getting acclimated to our buildings before they come. So we could use some strengthening in our security area.
Alex?
Yeah, so sure, all of these goals are very good and I support them. And I think we've had some of them in the process for some time. What about, I don't see anything here about library programs.
Mhm.
So for example, again, all of these are good. I'm just was struck by the absence of something, which is, and I'll just mention a couple as examples, increase the number of in-person concerts,
Mhm.
increase the number of databases that the library subscribes to, increase the number of in-person events from local authors.
So we do, so the
Kind of.
supervisors have put together their list. I'm doing this from an administrative point of view, but the supervisors have put together their list, which includes programs.
Oh, wait, so do we get to see those
You
or?
can see them. I want to put them in a PowerPoint or something and meet with the supervisors and go through them. But they have submitted them, so we're at that point. But so I think at that level, that's where the programming and things like that come in. But one thing that, you know, that we did initiate is a walk program. I know, you know, Norwalk is a walkable city that, you know, was part of the mayor's goals. And so we piloted at the Sono branch. Just, you know, maybe a walk around the block just to get, you know, the elderly or families moving. The police have partnered with us, so, you know, they'll be walking with us as well to keep us safe and also to get themselves moving. So that's one thing, but the supervisors do have more programming in their goals.
And we'll have a chance to see those.
Of course,
Okay, well, I'm just asking if they're not part of this goals, and I
right.
think,
And as I stated, this is more from an administrative point of view, but from a supervisor point of view, the goals are included.
okay,
So one program we're looking to reinstate is the passport service, and the estimated time is September 2023. Cindy and I will be conducting interviews on the 21st of this month. So we're pretty excited because people really want that program. And I've been in the post office a few times. The post office is dying for us to start the program as well, and the community too. So I'm looking forward to reinstating the passport service. Finalize the plan with the Libraries Without Borders. And I included that in the packet this evening for everyone to peruse in the hopes of inviting Venetia and her partner to present at a September meeting if Moina approves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finalize Sono library repurposing project and to finalize the Greater Norwalk Literacy Volunteers renovation and increase staffing with bilingual or multilingual staff.
could I suggest, Sherelle, that the number 7 above, instead of build partnership, should be explore partnership. You know, it's a pretty heavy lift in terms of staff and technology. And I know I've, you know, heard a lot of those discussions about having the AAA offices do license renewals. That's quite a big deal involving big money and technology and personnel. So I think exploring it is an interesting idea. I think if you just say build a partnership, that would be putting too much expectation on you to accomplish something that really needs some exploration first.
Sure, no problem.
Cheryl, number 10 is Borders, BORDER. I like BOAR. I think that's funny, but that's probably not what you mean.
So, and finally with the crosswalk. So the crosswalk would be looking at the mayor's goals. I've looked at them previously, but I don't know if we'll have any new ones now that he's running. Again, looking at Norwalk Public Schools goals, looking at NCC's goals, and looking at the Norwalk Hospital and New Vance's goals, just to see if we can do a crosswalk for partnerships.
By the way, it's not called NCC anymore.
Oh, no, it's CT State. Shoot me.
You have to get in line, Laurel. There are a lot of other people to shoot first.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, so awful.
Is that because they basically
Yeah.
put all of the 2-year schools together?
I'm
Is
sorry,
that the new
what?
name? Because they have, I know they were thinking of consolidating.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
they
why.
have.
And
That's
so
what that
all of
is.
them, is that the name for all of them?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're the NCC campus now, or the
Gotcha.
Norwalk
So
campus of the
CT
state.
NC campus, Norwalk campus.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Wow.
Could I pick up on Alex's idea about the programming? Perhaps you would it would be good to have in as administrator that you are reviewing the programming and, you know, and reviewing and looking for expansion of programming so that the focus is there for your responsibility.
And that's a good idea.
Yeah.
There are two things on the list. I'm not sure where they would fall, but we have been allocated budget for the carpet and furniture, so and then the other thing is the library cafe. I know those are two things that I think, you know, if they, I don't know if they fall right here or if they fall like,
So I'll put
Fair.
the things that are in partnership.
And what about emphasis of participating with the Wall Street development plans? Which we are doing, obviously, but we really stay with it because that's going to be so important to us. And to the city, you know, that. That might go somewhere else, but that concept is that we.
your list is growing, Sherelle.
Yeah. But we're-
Not a problem.
Sorry.
Some of this will be in partnership with the board.
Yeah, but we're doing most of these things. She's doing most of these
Yeah.
things, so.
Yeah, you
absolutely.
are.
It's good to articulate.
And then just the furniture.
And the carpet.
Upgrades. Small project upgrades or something.
Okay. So I'll redo this and get this out and also include the supervisors. So we're setting up our meeting with Libraries Without Borders. And, you know, and thereafter we'll discuss their goals. And they have some really good ones.
I enjoyed reading that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Sherelle, is there going to be any, I know some of us, I guess all of us have been interviewed individually. Is there going to be any chance to discuss those two documents with them?
Yes, I would love to invite them with Morna's permission to the September meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but we should definitely do that.
Yeah. The supervisors and I will meet with them in July. And then, yes, it would be great to have them come and present. So there, I don't know if anyone had a chance to read through them, but there was one thing that really stuck out to me. Hold on 1 second. We have to do a new share. So, so they're like so they compared Norwalk to the state. And so, as far as our library cards, we have 55% with the state, having 35%. Library visits, per capita, we had 3.2, the state had 2.7, but circulation per capita, is 2.7 for us and 5.4 for the state. So I found that pretty interesting and something that I'd like to explore with them and the supervisors.
I circled those.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Would that imply that people are coming for programming versus coming to take out books?
That was one of the things that's what I'm thinking too. And then we
Yeah.
have people who come and, you know, they read in the library, like they'll
Yeah.
read the magazines, they'll read the books.
That's a program, socializing.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I can't wait to discuss.
Hmm.
And I think I don't have the other one. Hold on a second, let me share. Yeah, I think that, hold on. Nope, that's the same one. I think yeah, but that's what really stuck out with me. So, but I'll, you know, let you guys have a chance to take a look at it and then we'll do a deep dive in September.
There are two places where they say Norwich. I think they should change that
In Norwalk, yeah.
instead of Norwalk. So, it's like a name, you know, you're just like always
Of course.
making sure that it's.
Well, hopefully the Norwich report talks about Norwalk.
I was like, how similar are we? We're actually double the populate, more than double their population, so.
Yeah, so. So that's basically it for my report. Thank you for the recommendations, and I will, incorporate them and put them in a nice document, in a nice PowerPoint document that will include programming.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I think, are we done with the meeting? This meeting?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Hold on.
Second, okay.
I do not have the webinar for the foundation meeting.
It's the same, but I'll send it out, Ralph.
When?
It's always the same link.
Do you want me to, I have it right here, Sherelle, too.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, yeah, if you
That-
could, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do it
Send
right
it to
now.
me too, please.
Me too.
I'll send it to everybody.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Okay, see ya.